I was just watching a video Abby Cox did about the 20s and how the flappers are so similar to Gen Z. I grew up, I got to know my great-grandparents a little bit. They were still alive, so those were the parents that were born people born prior to the year 1900, so they lived in the 1800s and stuff. My eldest grandparent was born in 1919, and knowing him and all my other grandparents who were through all the decades, and then I got to know my parents who were born in the 50s. My in-laws were born in my father-in-law was born in the 40s. I have lived through and have memories of the 80s and 90s. I was born in the 80s, and I'm a end of Gen X, though sometimes I feel more connected to Gen Y, which is even earlier than Gen X. Most people try and say Gen Y is millennials. Millennials were not Gen Y. It was the kids who were teenagers in the 80s. Though I wasn't a teenager till the 90s. I was born in the 80s. I'm Gen X. But when you were living through the time, they called the 80s kids Gen Y. Why ask generation? So, and then they also called them the lost generation at the time. That's people living through it, what they were saying in TV and movies and how they were describing themselves. So living through that time, though I was very young at the time, I remember how they were. And then coming into the 90s, they went to Generation X. And we are not Generation X, we are Generation Excellent. We were pushing ourselves up and telling people and bringing ourselves out, even though at the time we were still considered the lost generation because we were ignored. Our parents ignored us, a lot of us. Our parents were the latchkey kids. They were like, our parents did their thing and we had to raise ourselves. So how the nuances of growing up in that era, you used to go and like meet up with all the kids and you'd be on your own playing outside, or your parents would be out and you'd be at home playing on the video game systems before computers were around. So, I mean, you had to deal with yourself. They'd have microwave food everywhere. Your parents didn't have real food. You had a toaster oven and a microwave, and you cooked for yourself a bowl of cereal. Or you microwave something. You had to feed yourself. You had to grab stuff for yourself growing up a lot of times. So growing up in the 90s, I was in school and I remember taking cigar boxes to school. And then they got into the smoking being the early, like, it's not allowed around kids and in school. And my mom started covering the cigar boxes because they were my grandfather's cigar boxes. So I took those as pencil cases when I was really young. Later, I started with little bags and stuff, but my first pencil case that I took to school with all my pencils was a cigar box from my grandfather's cigars. My other grandfather had a fridge in the basement, and we'd get the beers we'd be sent down to get beers. That was normal to have the kids around, the alcohol, the cigarettes. It was in Looney Tunes when we were kids. Cartoons, they'd be smoking, they'd be drinking, they'd have all this stuff that we grew up with is like not around anymore. Things are being more censored. I've seen videos about where they show this from our generation to the current generation, the drastic differences with entertainment right now. With kids shows, he's saying about how one of the politicians was saying in a thing how we didn't have to watch what our parents didn't have to watch what we were watching to make sure it wasn't dangerous and all that. And then they show a clip of something Bugs Bunny did or something from our generation that we watched and wouldn't think twice about. It wasn't that our parents didn't have to, it's they didn't. Our parents let us raise ourselves. As a 90s era kid who I came into my own in the 90s. So, as a true Gen Xer, I watched I remember the DX and the wrestling, which was a major thing for kids back then. And we watched monster trucks. We were more aggressive. Things were a lot more aggressive. I remember the first major LGBTQ character, Willow, was like groundbreaking. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I remember watching all this growing up and watching Hercules and Xena, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, every TV show. I thought they were so so much of the stuff that we watched was the new Addams Family, new Adventures of Superman, new adventures of this, that, and another thing. So these shows I thought were so unimaginative. They're not even changing them and giving them a new spin to the same. They're just totally remaking them with new people, and it's so, and making them worse. There was something about the 90s that if you lived through it, the 80s and 90s are the golden age. And they considered us lost when we were coming of age. The lost generation. The why-ass generation. And I see they are right. We were lost, and we still are. And we've lost so many of our people. There are less of us at this point than there are of any other generation before or after. There's more boomers, more... I mean, the least population is us. There's more Gen Zs, more millennials than the Gen Xers. I mean, I know tons of people who were graduating were in high school the same time as me, or even in the couple years before. So many of us Gen Xers I know died and all. And a major part of it is that with all the murders the police are doing, they're doing it to my age group, to people who are my age group, are being murdered by police. We've had to deal, and drug overdoses, a lot of them are people that are murdered by police in a different way. The war on drugs is a corrupt... I did a video on TikTok of this same thing I'm talking about now. But the drug use, it being illegal, is a major thing with the police. The police is the largest criminal organization in our country. A lot of the police departments and all are the ones who are giving the drugs to our communities and putting them in our communities. The people they arrest are their competition. The drug dealers, they're not arresting, are white teenagers. And they're killing our kids with drugs, and they're making them their dealers. The police will confiscate the drugs and arrest the people and kill the people who are their competition. That's why they're killing all these black people and saying it's drugs and all, because they're the competition from them. They're supplying the drugs to the dealers, and they're getting money from it. And they're murdering people. It's all the drug trade, and it's all based on the police department that's doing it. I've known this for so long, and it's scary to me. The police department is the biggest criminal organization. They got their hand in so many different things. And I can't keep my mouth shut about all this, because we need a major investigation, and we need to stop protecting police officers that murder people. And a lot of times it's for their own greed. Breonna Taylor was murdered because of corruption in the police department to try to steal homes and land development. There is so many rackets in the government. But this also goes back to the 20s, the gangsters. And the police departments were a major part. It's the same thing happening over and over again. And we're seeing the early shots of the Nazis coming back with the Republican Party. The 20s and era. We are in it. History is repeating itself. And not just the year being the aughts and stuff into. So, and talking about the conservative elder generation, the conservatives are, as a whole, the Antichrist, the antithesis of Christ. You can't be a conservative and a Christian. These are all themes that I put on my TikTok as well, and I'm bringing over here. But we are repeating that era, and my generation has so few people still around. So we need to take the people we have of my generation. The older people, the millennials, are a little on the conservative side. And I'm trying to find people within my generation that are still around that can help fight with the Gen Z. We are old enough to take the reins. I've been watching the 1899 the movie or play. It's the on Disney Plus, Newsies, and it's based on the 1899 strike for the children that the Newsies, the newspaper delivery boys, did. There was the strike, and to try and take over, but it's very what we need. Teddy Roosevelt, he was a trust buster. We need that trust buster type. And I want to run to try and bring that Teddy Roosevelt. We need Teddy Roosevelt back. We need the Teddy Roosevelt type of politician, and I don't see it. The progressive that he was. The Republicans have become so horribly dangerous. But this is emotional for me, and it's a lot. Being born Gen X and knowing people from all different walks of life and all different generations, all different eras, in my own family, it's hard to. I see things from so many different sides, but I see what's happening, and I need to get this out. That the lost generation, Gen X, needs to fight, and I need to get people, more Gen Zs with me. So I'll start doing more on YouTube hopefully soon, to go with my TikToks. So, but I guess I don't know a next outro. So, bye. See you later.